Down to Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another live edition of 5 on the Floor. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan with me, the coach, Sean Rochester. We are going to get into the Miami Heat's 133-113 loss at home to the Denver Nuggets. But we know what everybody really wants to talk about, and that's Jimmy Butler. We're going to get to that in a moment. Before we do, I want to shout out Off the Floor. That is our Discord server. They are It has been flagrant up in there tonight. Everybody has strong opinions about what's gone on, but that's what you get when you have passionate fans talking about the Miami Heat. We've got a bunch of different channels, so it's not just Heat related. You can talk other stuff, but the Heat talk is 24/7. It's $2.99, $3.99 on your Apple device, but you can pass that by using the link in the description of this episode. Check out Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere. So this was a crazy night. This was a game where obviously Jimmy Butler returned, and that's what everyone wants to talk about. That is what we're going to get into first. Before we dive into what happened on the court, though, Sean, we're going to confront this head on about kind of just like the fact that Jimmy was back tonight. I had some strong pregame opinions that I want to get into a little bit and kind of offer that perspective as we dive into this, because this is a weird moment for the franchise, for the player in Jimmy Butler, for the team. And Eric Spoelstra really kind of acknowledged it in his pregame presser. He talked a little bit about this being, I forgot the exact words that he used, so I'm not going to do him justice, but something to the degree of this being like an uncomfortable situation or a unique situation, but they were going to be professionals and working through it. And then Bernie Lee, the agent of Jimmy Butler, drops a tweet with basically what I'm going to call the Michael Jordan letterhead. If you know what that means, saying Jimmy's back, and everybody's seeing him wearing the jersey with the 4-5, and this became a big thing. Jimmy Butler was back. And you know what? The way that I kind of absorbed that was not this like super excited, like, yes, the Heat are back kind of scenario. Like, I just didn't understand what had changed. You got a bunch of guys that are just on a long ass road trip. They've been playing, trying to keep their heads above water. None of those guys left, and the Heat and Jimmy comes back, and it's kind of a little bit like, look at me. And so for me personally, going into this game, I wasn't super excited about the prospect of Jimmy Butler getting back on the court. And I think it kind of showed in the game, frankly, and we're going to talk more about the on basketball stuff, but I just kind of wanted to start by saying that I just think that this is a situation where Jimmy Butler he's going to come to work and he's going to put in his hours, but there's a degree of it where I felt like there was not enough connective tissue on this team. They're not necessarily looking like they are. And I want to give Jimmy a little bit of grace in that he was off for 15 days. There was 7 games obviously off. That's a long time. So he has to kind of work himself back into this. But Sean, your thoughts kind of just going into this, Jimmy Butler being back in the mix. We'll talk about the on the court stuff next, but just your overall thoughts on Jimmy being back with his teammates. And it's going to be interesting to see if he speaks to the media. I don't know that he will, but I'm interested to pick your brain on just kind of the initial thoughts.
Yeah. And we talked about this
on playback. Always join us on playback. It's always a good time. Even in games like this, we have fun. And with the whole Jordan letterhead thing, we agree. Like, I did not like it. I was, if we think back, Greg, and me and you are of an older age, we remember a lot of Heat games. Think about when Zoe came back in 2001. I believe it was against the Raptors. Not that that would be something that Zoe would do by any means, but that's a Jordan letterhead return after what he went through to come back, return to Miami, and play again. Okay, to get back on the court. I'm back. That's a moment. When Dwayne came back from Cleveland, that was celebrated, right? I'm back. That's a Jordan letterhead. And you can think about whatever side of this fence you're on, right? He quit on his teammates. He chose not to play. He didn't come back from any. He self-imposed. I mean, he really put himself in this situation. So the celebration of coming back, like I compared it earlier to like a kid that got suspended for 7 days coming back to school and being like, I missed anything? Like these guys, like you said, were just on a West Coast road trip battling out there. And not to tell fans how to fan, but like we should be celebrating them, not celebrating. I'm excited that he's back too in a way, but like it just was a weird dynamic of like, are you celebrating? Are you unhappy? I'm not unhappy that he's back and we're not rooting against him, but like just this, like he made this moment about himself, it seemed like, when it should really be about the team and really the integration, like you're talking about, back into the team. And, we're going to get into all that and get into this game, but like, it's just a weird situation, whether it's for Spo, the staff, the front office, Jimmy, his teammates. It's just a lot of things to balance. And you have to remember, these are all people. Like, it's relationships. Some of this stuff probably can't be fixed, and it's going to be person by person. I don't know the details, but I'm sure there's guys in that locker room that don't want him to be there. And there's probably guys in there that are like, hell yeah, I'm glad Jimmy's back. So, how does that work out on a team atmosphere? It's to be determined, I think.
House divided will not stand, a wise man once said. And I think Ramona Shelburne's article that dropped earlier today was pretty damning when you heard some of the stuff about kind of Jimmy Butler and sources close to him, I guess, if that's the way we're going to go here, basically saying something to the degree if he's going to be the third guy, the third banana, he'll do that behind Booker and KD out in Phoenix. He doesn't want to necessarily be part of a transition to Bam and Tyler. It's just a weird dynamic. Truthfully, there's a lot of people that can catch strays tonight because nobody played particularly well. They're outclassed by the Denver Nuggets in a number of ways. I think that the Nuggets are not in the Heat's head necessarily, but there is definitely something where the Heat feel like they don't quite measure up and match up to the Denver Nuggets. And I think that was on display tonight as well. But we're going to get to our first segment. And I think that that's when we pivot to kind of what we saw from Jimmy on the court, because there were some moments where I thought it really looked like it was more of what we saw against New Orleans and Indiana. He had a better third quarter. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get to our first segment, the Insurance by Lynette Player of the Night.
And now it's time for the A Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
Now, in a 133-113 defeat, I don't know that we can really get too loud about players of the game, but we're going to use this as the segment to talk about Jimmy on the court, because I thought that it was an interesting observation by Brady Hawk, who was at the game, that initially there was not a lot of pick and roll reps for Jimmy. It seemed like he was kind of in the dunker spot or in the corner, which is kind of what we saw against New Orleans and Indiana. Kind of something that's been made pretty clear is that they're not necessarily running plays where he should always be there, but that's where he ended up. So I thought that initially his start on the court was a little uneven. Now the third quarter happened and he played a lot better. I feel like the game was kind of getting out of reach at that point. Like they started to just slip, but so it's an uneven night. And you look around the stat sheet. I mean, Tyler still led the team in scoring and field goal attempts. Bam, 16 and 11, 7 to 15. It ends up being pretty similar to what Jimmy did. It's not enough. So, I mean, there's lots of guys. Nico played good off of the bench. Terry had actually a better game than Terry Rozier has been having recently. There was less Terry minutes. So there's lots of stuff to take from this. Duncan and Haywood Highsmith obviously were a little off. But let's focus in on Jimmy. Just strictly on the court. Let's put all the other bullshit aside. What did you see from him that you like, dislike, those types of things from Jimmy Butler specifically?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, first half was not great. It did seem very uneven with his effort. And I did say this in playback also. Like, I think it's very unfair to these players to try to judge them from our couch. Like, unless you're there up close, it's really, really hard to judge it from TV, whether they're giving effort, how they're playing, and things like that. But I will say this. The third quarter, Jimmy seemed to get back to how he was playing this season. There were times where he got into bodies, made contact, got up and unders, went over and rose up over people and got those turnaround jump shots. I was encouraged by what I saw in the third quarter. I know he got reinserted in the fourth quarter, but basically, that's garbage time. It didn't really matter at that point. I don't want to assess that part. What I'd like to see is just more of the way that he played in the third quarter. I don't think offensively. I know there's a lot of finger pointing with roles and spots on the floor and things like that. I just don't necessarily know what offense this team can run that's going to make them an offensive juggernaut. Like, and we're going to get to more people beyond Jimmy, but like, I know Tyler is having a great season, but beyond him, like the offense is not great. Individually, you don't have a lot of skill. So, you can go out there and run a Princeton chin offense. You can run flex. You can run 5-out motion. I mean, read and react, whatever you want, but ultimately, Spo doesn't have a lot of ingredients to make a really good meal. So he's trying to make it the best that he can. And honestly, the offensive numbers this season are better than probably a lot of us would have thought. It's the defense that I think is failing us more often than not. And, we can point fingers at that too. But it's just, I would say Jimmy, if I had to give him a letter grade, like C+, B-, like, okay. Yeah. But I need more from him if he's going to be that max guy. And if you're looking at this from a trade perspective, these other teams that are looking for him, Denver's one of those teams. You think Denver saw anything tonight that was like, yeah, I want Jimmy Butler? I don't think so. I mean, so I don't, I know we want to move beyond Jimmy in this. We want to talk about the game, but like, it was just kind of a meh, whatever. Like, he was okay. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. He was just kind of Jimmy.
Speaking of max guys that are not playing like max guys, well, let's talk about Bam Adebayo. I mean, in 8 games in January, he's down to 15 points a game on 12 field goal attempts, 8.5 rebounds. His assists, 4.5, we'll say. I'm looking at the counting stats here, but it's pretty consistent now that Bam is having a bad year. I think that there's validity to the fact that he probably is gassed from the Olympics, and it's just been a bad year. He's been in a shooting slump. It impacted other parts of his game. So I think that it's important that we also acknowledge that there's a lot of issues with this team beyond Jimmy Butler. And this Jimmy Butler stuff obviously doesn't help all this scenario, but the idea that anything is fixed, whether Jimmy is here or not with this current iteration of the Miami Heat, I just think is unrealistic to expect. Particularly against a team like Denver tonight. They only shot 27% from 3. They're 9 of 33. That's really difficult to overcome as well. So I guess I'm mentioning these other things because I do see in the comments that a lot of people are saying that we're giving Bam a pass and that we're making it all about Jimmy. And I do want to acknowledge that everybody had a piece in this. There was obviously moments for everyone where they looked like they played well. There was some plays, which we'll get to in a bit, that I think are worth calling out. Tyler had his usual, relatively efficient game, well-rounded game, but against this Denver Nugget team, Joker had his way with Bam Adebayo in the post over and over again. I think that is also something that we can acknowledge. That's a tough matchup for anybody. I don't know who expects them to stop the Joker down low. I mean, I joked on Playback, and everyone should come check out Playback with us, but I was thinking maybe they need to start doubling Joker with Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo. I'm trying to think outside of the box. We've kind of reached that place. Let's get to the next segment. We'll get to our player of or the X-ray of the play of the night. And Ethan is supposed to be hopping on with us at some point. We'll see if he makes his appearance, but let's get to our next segment.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
Just to piss people off, I'm going to mention Duncan Robinson's beautiful alley-oop to Bam Adebayo. But I think an interesting play that was pretty representative of kind of this entire scenario was one in the first half where Duncan Robinson had Jimmy in the corner for a three and instead threw like a triple skip pass all the way across the court. I think it got to Tyler in the opposite corner who drained a three. And I thought that was pretty emblematic of kind of what we're dealing with here. It just seemed, I just have to think here that there's a degree of everyone that's like, cut the shit. Why are we going through these kinds of kind of dramatic entrances and exits and everything in between? And it just, I think that this team sorely needs to just have this about basketball. They're not good enough to go through the ups and downs of some of what this media chaotic circus has brought. We saw it on the West Coast trip. Even without that distraction, they came back and they were basically 500. So this is an interesting moment as they're now sitting at 20-20, I believe. Like losers of three straight. This is now going to be more uncertain going forward with Jimmy Butler. I think that there's just a lot of questions to be answered. Did any plays jump out at you that I'm missing? Anything that maybe, I mean, the Joker spin on Bam was particularly like, that was kind of, it summed up Bam's night against Joker. There were some crazy threes from the Nuggets, I thought, as well. Jamal Murray went nuts. What were some of your favorites?
I got two. I think both of them are in the second half. Neither of those X-rays are going to come back looking nice for us if we're evaluating the health of the Miami Heat. The first one I'll bring up is unfortunately painful. Another shot at Jimmy, unfortunately. I remember when Jimmy passed up the layup to kick out to three to our good friend Terry Rozier, who's shooting about 7% over the last 10 games from three. Wide open layup, hesitated, pump fake, and then kicked it out to Terry. That was painful to watch. I think that was late third quarter. And then a Nuggets play, transition play where they hit ahead to Joker, and he threw the ball behind him blind.
That was
Aaron Gordon for that reach it back and dunked on. I think it was Jovic. That was a highlight play. I don't have anything that I can remember Heat-wise. You know what? I do. Late game, Kel'el Ware, top of the key, air ball three, but not using this to go rain on him. Next time down, same spot, didn't hesitate, pulled it, nailed it. So I know the kid's, he's learning on the fly. Props to him for shooting it after a little bit of an embarrassment on the air ball.
Yeah, I mean, it takes guts to take that shot. We've got quotes coming in. This is from Alex Toledo. Follow him on Twitter at Tropical Blanket. This is Spo on Jimmy Butler's role. I don't know. We haven't seen him, obviously, in a couple weeks. He hasn't played in a lot of games, so that is likely a big part of this. I know what storyline you're looking for. I'm not doing that tonight. We got our asses kicked. Again, they got outclassed. I don't think you're going to get very many buzzworthy sound bites out of Eric Spoelstra. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Jimmy Butler talking to the media during this stretch, because, you know, that was kind of what lit a little bit of the flames that kind of got the national media's attention and why everybody's been honed in is when Jimmy, talked about needing to get his joy back and not being able to do it in Miami. I think that obviously the media, and I'm guilty of this as well, they want to ask those kinds of tough, uncomfortable questions, and it'll just be interesting to see how they navigate that and if they get Jimmy in front of a microphone. I haven't seen any Jimmy Butler quotes yet, but we'll see if more of them come out. How do they handle this going forward? They've lost 3 straight now. So you've not only got to integrate Jimmy, Sean, but you also have to kind of pick this team up, and they got to figure themselves out. As we look ahead to the schedule here, they've got San Antonio and Portland up next. San Antonio's on Sunday. It's an afternoon game. And then Tuesday, Portland. 2 winnable games at home. But I think that they're likely to stick with the same starting lineup. I think that they're going to probably just continue to see if these guys can get better. Do you have anything from your perspective that you think maybe they'll try differently against these teams? Because they're going to start to get desperate for victories. Like, you can't let this slip away here where you're dropping below 500 as you approach the trade deadline. Things are going to get even more loud and uncomfortable. So they're almost in an inflection point to save the season in certain ways, I think. Your thoughts on the next 2 coming up?
Well, I'm just going to add this, since I don't know if you've seen this in the Discord from Ethan yet. Ethan is in the locker room. He said, Jimmy asked for a little space. Quote, I know y'all want to talk to me about nothing. Jimmy is also wearing a Michael Jordan Bulls 45 jersey. He's it looks like going to be doing media in the Bulls jersey. And I will say it on behalf of you, Greg, I am now even more on this. It's about me. It's a me thing. It's the Pat Riley disease of me. It's about him. Let him. He just wants the attention. Like, I'm going to stand on that. Like, you can call me a front office water carrier, all that stuff. I'm just tired of it. And I don't mean that like we're going to take a trade that hurts the team. I hope he does something else. Send him home. I'm just tired of the distraction. It's just annoying.
No, I'm with you. It's the way that I felt. And, it's funny that there's very little walks of life where I would side on the side of, kind of management in this degree. And it's just hard because the Jimmy Butler's made it so untenable for the surrounding atmosphere. And then to come back tonight and kind of just, I don't know, make it a kind of a scene about himself. And it's just very pedestrian in terms of production. The team looked listless. What are we really getting into? So it's a diva move to some degree, as Thomas Osborne put in the chat here. Shout out to you. I think that that's something that we need to just acknowledge. And I know that there's people that are going to continue to back up Jimmy Butler, and there's people out there that are firm fans of Jimmy Butler. I don't have any ill will towards dude. I just think his time has run out in Miami, and we should acknowledge that. And it's just going to be a kind of uncomfortable scenario until they come to a resolution. And I don't think anybody's perspective has changed. I don't think the organization's perspective has changed. Jimmy Butler still wants to get paid. So this is going to be very much about him doing the least amount possible that could get him in any type of trouble. He doesn't want to be reprimanded, suspended, etc. And that's kind of the worst case scenario, because it almost sabotages what you're trying to do in creating an atmosphere where it's about basketball and about winning. It can't be about that when you got this other stuff going on. And so it's just going to raise larger questions about how you build going forward. And is it better to just have him away, as you mentioned? I don't know if they can just simply say, go home, because if he wants to play, there's elements of that I think get tricky. But at some level, maybe there could be mutual agreements, and maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they continue to do what they did tonight, but it doesn't look like a winning formula. And I think that that's what we really need to acknowledge. We'll get to our last segment. That is defending the house. We're hoping Ethan can join us, but he's probably getting caught up in the locker room. Let's get to the real estate shop segment now.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The real estate shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
The Heat did not defend the house. 133 points on your home floor. It's not getting it done. They had no block shots, 2 or 3 steals. I'm giving it to Jamal Murray. Dude had 3 steals tonight, a block, 12 of 24 from the field. And I know that that's an offensive stat, but he was energized tonight. And I saw it on both ends. And I think that Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, however you pronounce his last name, these guys just tend to cook Miami in a weird way. And it's this is a situation where this team is a bad matchup for the Heat. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of fans got super excited thinking that Jimmy Butler would maybe do some storybook shit, right? Like come in and get going in a crazy kind of way and play above maybe expectation, and you start to get a little bit of momentum. I mean, like that's the most optimistic view of this. And they came out and ultimately you don't see them. I don't see a path to that. Like, and I'm the most optimistic of Heat fans. Like I try to find the good in this because there's been some shitty seasons that have been fun in retrospect. Maybe not as you're going through them, but you think back on them, you find the fun parts of this. And, there's been fans that have expressed to me on social media specifically that this team hasn't been very exciting. And maybe the Jimmy Butler drama is the most exciting thing about this team. And for me, and as we kind of get closer to closing this show, that's embarrassing. Like if this Jimmy Butler off the court, where does he want to go and how can you trade him? And then the organization leaking things and the player leaking things, and you're hearing stuff from both sides. It's just nasty. It's messy. And it's just, to me, it should be beneath all parties involved, but particularly the organization. And so I hope that they do take a hard look about what it means to have him continuing to be around this team, and if it's going to sustain any level of success, if it's going to be something where you're going to stunt maybe what other players could have been doing and kind of taking on responsibilities. We saw Jaquez do things on the road trip that, you want to continue to see Nico develop. These are all the different elements that Spo has to now juggle on top of this scenario with Jimmy. Final thoughts from you as we close. Shout out to our sponsors. We probably won't get Ethan on. I had a feeling that was going to happen tonight, but your final thoughts on tonight's loss to the Denver Nuggets and anything we may have missed. You can back clean up here.
Yeah, let me add a couple of things to this defending the house segment. Cleaning the glass data here for the Nuggets. 97th percentile offensive rating, 135.7. 91st percentile effective field goal percentage, 63%. They only turn the ball over 6% of the time, 99th percentile. Like, you're just not going to win. And you add all that up, and it's baked into your effective field goal percentage, but 48%, almost 49% from behind the arc for the Nuggets. You can't, you have no chance. I mean, right there, those are all defensive metrics that they failed you. Even if your offense was better, and tonight it was at 115 offensive rating, 56th percentile, that's not good enough to beat the Nuggets. Not good enough to beat a lot of teams. Look, I just think ultimately, a lot of fans right now are frustrated, which is understandable. I think we all are. I can't imagine how there is any joy. Looks like Ethan just texted he is joining us, so I will make sure that I drag my feet here. But yeah, it's frustrating because we know the good times. We've been through the bad times. This is definitely becoming even more of a bad time, and it doesn't ultimately matter who is at fault. I think ultimately, you can point fingers at Jimmy, you can point fingers at the front office, you can point fingers at Bernie Lee, whoever the hell you want to point fingers at. It doesn't matter whose fault it is because we're all stuck in this mess and there's no fix to it right now. We're just stuck in this stinky ass team, and we have to cover it and watch it every night. So, Ethan, save us.
Speaking of covering the team, and we just lost Ethan. He was live from the bowels of the arena, the Kaseya Center. We're gonna try to wait another minute, so I'll continue to stall and see if we can get him back online here. I think that it'll be interesting just to get his insight on kind of the vibes around there. I see I've left a comment up. People are gonna say I did that on purpose for sure. Here's Ethan again. What are the vibes like around there? Is it as awkward as we feel like it might be?
At the arena. Hold on.
Can you hear us? Nope.
Gone again. We're going to keep trying here. Let's take some comments. Anybody got questions? Ethan, obviously, I think people are frustrated. Everybody is talking about Vice being back, but it looks like this is like a tough this is going to be a tough sell going forward. If this is just what we're going to watch, is them try to basically drag Jimmy through the rest of this season and then have to deal with the fact that he could potentially opt in. It makes me think that they're going to ultimately choose basketball over the drama. And I think that they're going to really try to find a trade for him. Ethan's back now. Let's see if we can get him going here.
Just while we're getting him on, Ethan posted in our host updates. Jimmy had a quote. That quote, "The truth will come out." Ethan, can you hear us? No.
Lost him again. 3 times the charm. Thank you all for joining us. We will have you covered for much more. Get on off the floor because Ethan will be updating there as well. The link will be in the description of this episode, but also follow us all on social media at Greg Sylvander, at S Rochester NBA. If I remember that correctly, hopefully I did. We appreciate our sponsors. We appreciate everyone in the chat. We understand that everybody is divided about this. And as Dwayne Wade said, a house divided will not stand. So hopefully we can get Ethan on a future episode to kind of give us an update, but it doesn't look like that's happening tonight. Thank you all. Peace out.